positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, 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 not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human.
Hola y bienvenidos a Pod Damn Los Estados Unidos,
That rhymed.
podcast de socialismo y spooky ghosts para los estúpidos, for the dumb. Hello. Welcome to Pod Damn America, the Gothic Socialist podcast for dumb ass motherfuckers, for the stupid children. I kind of like this new one, just for the stupid children. But
Los niños tantos.
by the stupid children. I'm Jake Flores, and Los Niños, Alex Patek.
Hey, didn't see you there. I was just speaking in Spanish with my friends.
and Anders Lee.
Anders Liaki.
Like
I did that same joke last week, but
Ahoy.
it's staying.
it's classic. It's classic.
Yeah. People ask me, what is a joke? And I say, it's when you tell people where Anders Lee is.
In Spanish. A joke, that describes a lot of people's comedy. They throw in random Spanish words into their English vernacular, and it's funny. It's cute.
Structurally, if you break it down, you have the setup. Anders Lee. Where is he? Here. That's the misdirect. He's right here.
Tengo un novio.
I have a boyfriend.
Said I have a boyfriend. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Yo, soy hermana.
Latin Anders. A little different. I have a sister?
Also true.
You have a sister?
Mamacita. Mamacita? Is that it?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
All right.
That's a perfectly reasonable thing.
Whoever, the right-wing Latin Americans who are tuning in to hate listen to this are already so angry.
Yeah, I hate how much of our fan base that is. It makes me feel bad. Anders, did you have like a run-in with somebody?
Yeah, what happened? Who got pissed? Oh, because of the Venezuela.
From the video, yeah. We made yes. And when we've talked about it before, it's a controversial topic. This is what I've been thinking about all week.
Claro.
Is what is worse? Because I've been I've been on both ends of this, getting screamed at by some might say guisanos. I don't know if I should say that or not, but
no, definitely say it.
They get very angry,
Cool.
but I don't know if that's worse than getting lectured by the Workers' World Party people or like tankies. Like which one is worse? They're both pretty bad, and I've gotten from both ends,
Payasos to the left of me. I forgot. I forgot what the word for Joker is, but it's very funny because it's on the fucking flag of the poster in Spanish.
Chistosos?
It's some word that is not as menacing as Joker.
I feel like I've been walked into this surprise Spanish quiz, and I was not prepared. It's been a long-ass time.
I'm reading this motherfucker right now. Hold on. Venezuela, that just reminded me of something. So I don't know what's going on with my Twitter, like in general, sure. But like this week I followed Ben Garrison because I just realized I hadn't been following him. But like he just shows up in your life. There's like enough of his shit sort of. Whenever you make something that's particularly weird, it'll get retweeted into my timeline. But I eventually was like, I should go straight to the source. I should just be following him for more Ben Garrison shit all the time. And
I mean, he's consistently draws shit that would be cool that we want.
yeah, it's
Like a buff Donald Trump.
or just,
Well, not that, but
just so many.
actually, I want that. I want Donald Trump to get fit. I want him to leave office and work out.
I want him to work out in the office. I think it's never too late to start.
True. So he followed me back like within a day or two, I guess, because of like the blue check mark or something. But like, he's in for a surprise, I guess, if he listens to this or whatever. At best case scenario is that he listens to the podcast, grows to hate us, and then we become like weird over sexualized characters in a Ben Garrison.
And then we get Ben Garrison.
Yeah.
About
We are all on the same page. We all want this to happen
Yeah.
pretty badly. I want a sexy Anders Lee. or like a cucked out Anders Lee?
Something weird. Anders,
What's going to be the angle when
he
he
does
does
something
it?
with my foreskin, like with a bunch of government money in it. I don't know.
no, it's
He's got government cheese under his hood. Because he doesn't clean his smegma. The smegma is the deficit.
This is supposed to be the public episode, not the pubic episode.
Yeah.
it's
I'm sorry I referenced that smegma story
I
you
brought
keep
in.
telling.
I don't know. That's
patrons.
yeah.
Only
It's just my go-to when people are asked, like, "Hey, what can I roast you about?" My go-to is I have an uncircumcised penis.
I didn't know that, but
There's a lot worse things you could say about me, but that's like just the easiest thing to offer for.
You just gave it to Ben.
Yeah, take
Ben's
it.
got
Run
it
with
now.
it, Mr. Garrison.
I think a Ben Garrison scathing takedown of Anders is like, so now we know he's got the fucking smegma uncircumcised dick out, and then he's also saying I have a girlfriend, and then his girlfriend is like, you know, something that Ben Garrison hates. It's like the government or something.
A Jew.
Sure, yeah. It's just,
And he's dating the elusive Jew.
That actually
Not
would
a
offend
Jew,
him a
the
lot
Jew.
because it's, you know, a Jew dating an uncut guy who's the Gentile. That's not good for the Zionist project.
ham on
What
rye.
is this conversation right now?
Yeah, we've got.
Well, anyway, we should talk about Bolivia. That's the fucking story of the week.
Wait,
right?
are we going to talk about Churro Lady?
I guess
Solidarity?
we should.
The Bolivia of New York?
We should probably pour one out for the churro lady. For anyone not local to New York, I don't know if the story went national, but like, there's this thing where the NYPD has decided to just start cracking down real hard on fare evasion, which is evil thing to do, you know, because the NYPD famously, there's just how many unsolved murders and other things could the NYPD be doing, you know?
Well, the thing is, the MTA keeps raising the price of the subway, and because people can't pay for it, and there's increasing pressures on like a state level, like bring these prices down, fix the subway, and that is just goes unaddressed year after year. So what they've done instead is just pay policemen to just like rough up teenagers jumping the turnstile to squeeze more money out of it, and just generally like just do state terrorism to people.
Yeah.
Just make you afraid to cut in line.
There's always just like, if you jump a turnstile, you turn the corner and there's just a fat guy with like a fucking badge on like a lanyard around his neck. And he's just like, and then you go, what the fuck is the point of this guy's job? You know, because, I don't know. I mean, it's legal to swipe someone in, you know? So like, why?
They tried to make that illegal too, and it just didn't stick because you've already paid for something. But you know what it is? It's that voice in your head when the first time you jump a turnstile and you're like, I can't just jump the turnstile. Something's going to happen if I jump the turnstile. And you do it and you're like, oh, it's just here and I could just jump over it. And you learn like you live in a real world. But now we've created a surveillance state where if you do it, they have like plainclothes officers hiding that like come find you and tackle you to the ground.
Getting away with it feels great, and then the one time you get fucking busted for like $50 over it, it fucking sucks. And but there's like this, you know, boiling like sort of it's like a goddamn Spike Lee movie or something. Like people are pissed off about it, and so people are organizing and going down there and just like jumping the turnstiles en masse, which I think is a really funny, cool thing to do, to just like completely, you know, bowl over any situation where they would be able to like crack down on it. But so because that's happening now, the NYPD is like cracking back at the churro lady for some reason. Like,
right. In the subways, in our beautiful subways, not only is it just riders, but there are also people just selling baked goods sometimes, you have to understand, and they just hang out down there all day.
it's a New York institution.
How she makes a living, yeah.
It's my understanding that they have become so pissed off and are so unable to like fight back against mass amount of people jumping turnstiles. They've just turned the gun 45 degrees and we're like, if this is going to happen, we're going to take out everyone's favorite person in the fucking subway and arrest a churro lady. But I also think that probably what's going on here is that like, you know, cops are fat guys and they like famously eat donuts and shit. So like there's a video of them like, And this churro lady is saying, like, can I at least keep my churros? And they're like, no, that's like contraband or something.
They have to expropriate the churros.
They're going to
They're taking the churros.
Is that because there's trans fats in them? We're going back to Bloomberg era?
Oh, sure, maybe. But that's also probably why they want them so bad. I just think this is going to end
They
with...
probably want them because they taste so good.
You know those Facebook photos that cops take where they like lay out like $37 in cash and then like a 20 sack of weed and they're like, we took this off the street, but it's like half the churros that they seized, you know, because their crumbs are all over their mouths and shit.
Right.
This is 56,000 calories off the streets. You're welcome.
Well, this is like a so-called quality of life crime, which we talked about with Sean KB on our episode about the Giuliani era. About this is sort of disorder in the eyes of broken windows theorists and the police head honchos in cities like New York. They think a subway should be a totally automated place. Like you get in there, you go to point A to point B. They shouldn't have things like someone from another country giving unregulated snacks out, you know, or people dancing. Like all that type of thing is just disorder to them. Anything that's just not complete 100% monotonous routine has to be dispensed with to have an orderly city in their view.
It keeps you from getting to the boardroom.
Yeah.
But this is like a worldwide phenomenon, though, the resistance to it. And it's hard to really stop because there's nothing inherently violent about fare evasion when it's happening en masse. When you have hundreds, thousands of people doing it at once, it's hard for the authorities to stop them, especially because they're not necessarily breaking anything or killing anybody. But we've seen it being a fairly successful tactic in Chile, where the president has just announced that he will sit down and try to hammer out a new constitution, because apparently it's been since the Pinochet era since they've gotten a new constitution.
Yeah, no one's read it. It just says crazy shit in there.
Yeah.
It says stuff like you have to clean your room, and that fire trucks are gay.
That's what it says.
Stuff like that. Pinochet wrote it. I didn't write it. Don't be mad at me.
Pinochet.
Cleanochet. That's what they called him because he always wanted you to clean all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they got to redo it because it's all fucked up.
Yeah.
Got to redo it because it's all fucked up.
Because it's all fucked up.
Might. I mean, the exciting thing, and we'll see if this goes through. Probably won't. But there's talk of breaking Chile down into constituent assemblies, sort of completely decentralizing the government in a very local, almost anarcho-syndicalist fashion.
Some sort of collection of Soviets.
Yeah. I don't know if that's going to happen.
In Chile. Cool. Yeah, they'll probably have a cool new word for it, like beach slices.
Probably that, yeah.
The Confederacy beach slices. And then that's what you have to call them at meetings now.
It definitely feels like that part at the end of Independence Day when it's cutting to all the different places around the world that are taking the fucking UFOs down and shit, and in New York we're fucking defending the churro lady against the fucking NYPD. It's obviously much less of a thing, but there's cool shit happening that happened in Chile right before this.
She just becomes the new Joker. She leads a mass revolt.
Dude, shit. Fucking somebody's they were wearing Joker makeup in the streets in in the protests and shit.
Yeah.
And something cool I saw today was every once in a while something oddly eerie and cyberpunk happens, and they were using drones against the crowds, and someone figured out that if you just hand out a bunch of green laser pointers, you can all laser point at the drone and then fuck up its little sensors that tell it when it's bumping into shit. So they took down a drone with
Nice.
100 people just bzzz, pointing at it.
Digimon style tactic.
Cool as shit.
To defeat the drones.
Were the drones shooting people or just monitoring them?
I think they were just monitoring.
Who knows what they were doing?
I think they were just monitoring. We probably would have
Okay.
there was a full on drone strike, which I don't think will happen. a while,
Hopefully not.
but still a pretty cool thing to do.
They had tiny men in them.
There was another one I saw.
And those men
I
died.
can't remember which country it was, but there was like a fucking roving thing that they like used they made a salt circle around like you would do like if you were doing like fucking witchcraft or some shit. And somebody explained it. I don't know the exact science on it or whatever, but it fucked up the thing's sensors, so it was just like a Roomba stuck in one corner, like salt. It couldn't get around it. Pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome! I love this new conflagration of just like movie magic working on these robots.
It's cool.
They're too dumb to get around it.
Yeah.
And I just want to do that shit anyway. Like, I want to point a laser pointer at something. So to have a good reason to do it feels fantastic to me.
I mean, I'm sure there's no shortage of like trust fund douchebags in Brooklyn who have drones that film shit.
True. It would be funny if when all the people were taking the drone down with the laser pointer, like a bunch of cats just came out of the woodwork, and they love laser pointers. And then
That's true. They do love laser pointers. That is a bit of a funny thing about them.
But anyway,
they're just hopping around. But yeah, Anders, I must sadly point out to you that New York is a no-fly zone for drones. It is against municipal law.
Really? I've known
to
people
be
who
flying
use them.
such things around. Absolutely not.
Well, I mean,
not since 9/11, my friend.
Allegedly known people who've had guns in New York. It's illegal, but someone has to have flown a drone here before, right?
Okay,
yeah,
you
I
can
know
have a
people
gun,
have
but
shot
think about how much
film.
easier it is to hide a gun than a drone.
No, I know people who film stuff with drones in South Slope.
You allegedly.
Well, allegedly, that would be against the law, my friend. And I am here to represent the city of New York and the county of Brooklyn, and just lay out what you can and cannot do around here.
Well,
and I want to bring that to the podcast.
Can I ask you that? Because this has been my dream for a while.
Go ahead.
Is in the summertime, a lot of rooftop parties, right?
Sure.
An aircraft, Wright Brothers style, that can fit a few people, and it hops from rooftop party to rooftop party. Is that legal?
What is your question?
Is it legal?
Is it legal?
This is a thing you saw once, right?
I haven't seen it. I've seen it in my head, but it does not exist as far as I know. But it's a business venture I would like to partake in.
I don't think you could do it.
But if you could, would it be allowed? Would we get shot down by the pigs?
I think you.
Yeah, I don't think you
likely to pull off something like that with a hot air balloon sort of situation.
Okay.
Now we're talking.
Miniatures.
That would work. Because you wouldn't have to run. You wouldn't have to do the takeoff, like by circling around. It would just like go vertically and.
Or a Harrier jet where it like fucking hovers, but a full-on runway is hard to pull off. And
runway's hard to pull off. That's true. Yeah. So it'd have to be a levitating hot air balloon.
Well, what I think would be the problem is you'd be infringing on. You can't go on the roof.
Oh, right.
You can't even be on the roof. Now you want to launch a plane off it?
It's also a problem.
You're not even supposed to be up there.
I'm just saying, like, if you could they have these things called the pedal pubs in the Midwest, where it's like a bunch of assholes will drink while they're biking, and it's
flying an Orville Wright plane.
Yeah, if you get people to
houses.
sign up, everybody puts in like $200 or something, and you have like a Saturday night where it's like we're gonna go to these 7 parties, everybody strap in, and it's low power airplane. I think that's a good idea.
And they die every time, you're saying?
I don't think everyone would die. There would be loss, but I don't think it would be the entire crew every go. You know,
man, people in the Midwest take DUIs to the next level every chance they can.
Well, there's a great video. Sorry, we're getting off track here. There's a great video of the Pedal Pub, which is this bicycular fucking mobile bar, and a bunch of people would squirt them with squirt guns. And it turned out one time they would do this little prank because nobody likes them. They're very annoying. But they did it to a group that was on the pedal pub, who turned out to be off-duty cops. And they just like beat the shit out of the pranksters. It's like a video of it. It's insane.
Oh no, that is not a fun prank.
No.
They're angry.
No, it's actually kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
The
you know
city
what
of
else
New
isn't a
York,
fun
that's
prank?
fucked up.
Doing a coup to a sovereign country. Bolivia is in the midst of a coup. They got a new president. She's, I'm not going to say she's not attractive.
Wow. Interesting
Yeah.
start.
I mean, that's, I think, a strategy, quite frankly.
We need a Disney princess neoliberal installed president.
Evo, who was taken out, also an attractive person. If you've seen his hair, it has not really changed since he was elected in 2005. It's thick, it's dark, full,
Somewhere in
volume,
between
nice.
Eric Estrada and the Incredible Hulk. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's a,
He's-
very,
It
yeah,
looks like
it
being
does.
president has like relaxed him.
it's a very bold haircut. That's how you know he's legit.
Yeah.
This is the kind of consistency the people demand.
So anyway, I'm sure you've heard many a podcast by now about the situation down there. It ain't great, although it looks like the MAS, the Socialist Party, still has a pretty strong majority in the Senate. So we'll see how it shakes out. But I've lost a friend already. I happen to know somebody who's in Bolivia, another white dude like me, who for some reason is in Bolivia and is telling me that not getting the full story. Evo's a tyrant and a dictator and all this crap. I've kind of reached the conclusion where it's like it's never easy to point this out, and it's always a dickish thing to do. But sometimes you just have to say, like, look, you are in this place physically, but that doesn't mean you know anything about what the fuck is happening around you. Like, if you dropped a Bolivian in Kansas, they would not somehow become an expert in Kansas City zoning regulations. Like, you have an obligation to argue with people who have firsthand experience with these things. You have to mansplain American imperialism to people who are experiencing the consequences of it firsthand. Because it is a coward's way out.
You have to do that.
It is a coward's way out to, and I'm guilty of this too, is I've sort of eased some of my extolling of people like Evo because of pressure from people who are from down there who will be like, you don't know what it's like, you're an American. But that is the coward's way out. I think you have to stand firm about being against the coup and pro Evo Morales in this case.
It's a really convenient narrative for just the other side of this argument because you can't disagree with it. And there's also like I think it would be like sort of nicer to imagine that like all of the people in Bolivia are on the side of Evo and that there's this singular factor in that there's like a CIA coup that comes in and organizes like a handful of people and creates a situation where there's an overthrow of government and everyone hates it. But the fact of the matter is that there are like right-wing forces within countries like Bolivia and Venezuela. And there are also people that usually, I would probably make an argument that the best indicative or the best indicator of them being on the side of the right wing is like a class interest thing where they have money or whatever.
Yeah.
But there are all these Joanna Hausman types who are fucking rich and they're from that country and they, maybe aren't even being that cynical, maybe just see things a certain way, but they're still wrong. And so there's no reason to give someone way more like benefit of the doubt just because they're saying, well, I'm here and I'm fighting on the other side of this fucking conflict. Like, fuck you, you're still wrong,
Right.
I personally don't like to develop an opinion on any of these delicate issues until I take the time to listen to somebody at a frat in Miami. Those are the most beleaguered people in the world. They've seen the most oppression. Many of them have lost slaves for their family, and they have a lot to tell you about what you don't know.
Right. That's the thing they'll always say about, like, they'll try to describe how awful this third world regime they live under is, and they'll be like, you don't understand, but my family, we used to own a mine. It was a business.
Yeah, did you see that?
Yeah, and it was taken away by the government. It's like, good. we want that.
It used to be mine. It was mine.
Oh.
But
folks.
A bunch of Italian guys getting excited that mine has two purposes.
I will give myself credit, though. Well, maybe I shouldn't give myself credit. I don't know how I should feel about myself doing this. I was in a conversation with a Mexican woman the other day, and I asked her about Lowe, and she said she didn't like him. And I decided to not argue with her about this thing that I have read like 3 articles about 2 years ago. Yeah. So good on me for that. But AMLO is giving shelter to AMLO Evo, Uma Oprah, and I'm happy about that. Nothing makes me more pleased than that bromance. All I gotta say is that Mr. Manuel Obrador, please be careful about the ice picks up there in Mexico. A moratorium on ice picks, I think.
Get him away for our boy.
Yeah, there's not a good history of socialists seeking asylum in Mexico. It's a scary place for some. But yeah.
Would that make the new president the Stalin of Bolivia?
Were you arguing with the Churro lady?
She's already been through a lot this week, Anders. You don't need to tell her what to believe.
I hope she's on the side of the tide. The pink tide.
Also,
I hope she's on the right side. This poor woman trying to sell churros in the subway.
It's not. What if it turns out she's like a fucking hardcore fascist?
She's like one of those weird, obscure ones that's like not even into Nazi Germany, but some other shit. Yeah, she argues on Twitter with a fucking statue avatar.
The first Caesar had prima noctis, and thus we would render to our Lord.
The other people that offered some help to our boy Evo, I don't know if you heard about this, Anders. I heard that RT is possibly looking to offer him a job.
Really?
Yeah. And the only reason
they're looking to give him your job.
I saw like a lib friend and retweet it, very alarmed in like a Red Scare 2.0 fashion, and go like, "Do you think Russia's behind this?" I don't even know what the narrative there is supposed to be.
What would we be behind? We're behind because we want his talent that badly. Is that we're willing to
Russia's always playing crazy angles. They want his hair.
The master plan that RT and the Kremlin are putting together involves Anders, the fucking wrestler guy, Jesse Ventura, and I guess Evo in his retirement.
Just picture this: Vladimir Putin. He's still in his 60s. He's looking a little behind, beaten around the bush. Okay, 1 month he suddenly appears in front of a camera, thick, lustrous head of hair, bowl cut all the way around his head.
I don't want to underplay the amount of nefarious shit that goes on at my employer, but today Larry King, who has a show on RT, is out, and Dennis Miller was filling in for him for a number of weeks. Now it's Tom Green, who...
Oh! All 3 of those people are on RT.
Yes. It's just like the strangest... Yeah. He was interviewing Pam Grier today, which I want to check out. I didn't recognize her at first. She's got a whole new getup.
Does he still do Tom Green shit like while he's being a state agent?
Dennis Miller, a Republican. That's like, that's hard evidence against it being like this weird secret communist project. I don't even know what the fuck Russia.
The way these American pigs treat their foreign subjects reminds me a lot of the way Rapunzel would let her hair down into the lakes outside of Mordor.
Mordor. I like the emphasis.
The reference didn't really make sense, but his references don't make sense, which makes it an uncanny impression. 10 out of 10. I've done it again.
That's how he would say it too. Mordor.
Mordor. And then it would be like huge applause. Because the thing is, like, we poke fun at the man, but he gets results.
I don't know how you square that circle of being like. I mean, I guess that's why he doesn't have as many fans anymore. Is like the big grievance of the right wing is the left being culturally pretentious, and his whole thing is just being as obscure as possible.
He is a man that truly no one likes.
Yeah.
Occupies a space that no one wants that to happen.
Should we kick it to our meat of the show today?
Yeah, let's walk us through it, man.
So there was a little film that came out in 2005 called Our Brand is Crisis, which is about the nation of Bolivia, it so happens. And it's a documentary about a political firm headed by James Carville
Yeah.
that decided to intervene in the Bolivian election in 2002, at which time Evo was up for president. He didn't get elected that time, but he was up.
Spoilers.
He was up against Goni, who was this guy who had been president in the 90s and then comes back in 2002 and hires all these Americans because he's called the Gringo. Well, the interesting thing about it is, it goes into the Bolivian history, which is pretty fascinating given the current context, we can get into in a minute. But it was remade 10 years later as a Sandra Bullock movie. In 2015, this documentary about American political consultants was redone as a Hollywood narrative picture. And I don't know why that happened, but it's an interesting movie because it's sort of asking Americans to kind of confront our adventurism, if you will.
Truly bizarre.
Watch the documentary, like film of the shit that actually happened.
Yeah.
Following the story as a pretty easy to read, like A to B to C sort of, neoliberal interventionist sort of thing, where the downfall at the end of it is that, like, we shouldn't have fucking been doing this, and it was a pretty failed experiment. And then watching what they made with this weird, like, Vice-ish, not Vice the like publication, but like Vice the fucking movie, like a interesting fictionalization in style, just movie, like popcorn movie, where they tried to retell the story but completely missed the point of it and didn't really seem to capture like the spirit or anything of what was going on, is so fucking baffling, because they took out parts of it that, like, were, even if you fucking missed the point and you got the story entirely backwards, there were parts of this that were, like, kind of interesting and would have made a good movie. I would say first example of that is just James Carville is a very charismatic, funny character. They could have had a James Carville character in this Sandra Bullock movie. They totally didn't.
That was Billy Bob Thornton.
But see,
but it wasn't like really what he did.
Okay, you're saying he wasn't
like
as Carville as Carville. I didn't really try.
No, but he was like playing a made up role.
Yeah.
He's not her boss in that. He's like a.
In reality, in the documentary, there is one American firm that goes down, and they go down to try to help get Goni elected. In the movie, there's Sandra Bullock, and she's like this hotshot that is that firm, and then she has like a opposing firm.
Right.
And they're like running Manfred or somebody, one of the other candidates. That's not a thing that happened.
Which is a totally new story.
It's not.
Now.
That's not what happened. And so Billy Bob Thornton's character looks kind of like Carville, but he doesn't really act like him. Like, he's like all serious in the movie, but Carville in real life is so funny. In the documentary, he's saying weird shit. Like, he's talking about Winnie the Pooh at one point, and he's like, you got your piggers and your tiglets. That's not what the names of those characters at all.
That's comedy.
And he says some weird shit. Like, he's like explaining to this fucking guy they're trying to install in Bolivia, and then his actual Bolivian staff, who there has to be a culture gap between them and James fucking Carville. He just like saunters into this room and he's just like, man, the opposition over there, they ain't gonna know whether to wind their ass or pick their watch or whatever.
Or pick their ass. They won't know whether to whine or pick their ass by the time we're done with it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Is like an important distinction is in the real version. There was only one firm with one candidate in Bolivia, one American firm, because it's a neoliberal firm and they're an international project. They go around and do this in different countries. Of course, obviously, they've ran candidates in the United States plenty of times.
You never compete.
One of them keeps referencing Ireland, how they just finished a campaign in Ireland.
Yeah, they go around the world and they believe, from the outset, it's very clear that they're like their thing is democracy, and they cannot separate markets in liberalizing things like industry that were previously nationalized. They can't separate that from political rights. They see them as one and the same, and like we're promoting democracy by privatizing a oil supply that was benefiting the whole population. But they don't. In reality, there's not a bunch of there's if you're a neoliberal campaign consultant, you're looking for the neoliberal candidate, and that was this guy who had been president already. You wouldn't, there aren't at that point anyway. There wasn't like some socialist campaign consulting firm sitting around waiting to get called up by Bolivia.
Not like now when you can hire Struggle Session to come and coach your political campaign from start to finish
Right.
for only $5 a month.
If you're a Latin American political party, actually consider reaching out to us. We don't speak Spanish. We don't know jack shit about your culture.
As has been evidenced in this episode.
We will help you. And that was a bizarre thing, is like, I don't know why. I guess it kind of worked, but it really shouldn't. Like the idea that these people who have been, running the Bill Clinton, Al Gore 92 campaign would somehow be good at helping a guy in another side of the world with a completely different election, like, is a little hard to understand. But they export their values. Obviously he agrees with them, and also like the tactics, because it's about persona, it's about messaging, and from the jump, they're like, people do not trust you. They do not believe you because you've already screwed them. So the only way you're going to win is by telling them that if they don't vote for you, things are just going to keep getting even worse.
That's the craziest part of this movie, right? Okay, so I like watched part of it on the train, and I got home and I was finishing it, and my wife was home, and I was trying to catch her up, and I was like, okay, so the movie's following this guy Gonzalo Sanchez de Lozada, and he's running for president, but remember, he was president before. And then she stopped me there, and she's like, what? And I was like, yeah, he was president, but then he stopped being president, and now he's trying to be president again, which is insane. Why would anyone trust you to do anything correct after you've been president already? They've seen you do your thing.
That's a very common thing I don't think it's just Latin America. I think it's like most of the world except for the U.S. is like people go in and out of power. They go on little vacations, sabbaticals, and then they decide to come back. Lula, hopefully we'll do that in 2022, if not before. Fingers crossed for Snap.
He's very physically fit. I don't know if you saw the video.
I sure did. Ooh,
busted out.
Yeah.
But the guy in between Goni's terms was a dictator in Bolivia in like the 70s, I think. And then he's like, well, my dream has always been to actually get elected. So in 1997, he ran and got elected and then died. And then they had this new election.
Well, doesn't that perform badly if his one chance in office before was immediately followed by just like a
former dictator?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a bad sign to you that maybe this isn't a good idea for you to run again.
Right. And well, that was the name of the movie. Our Brand is Crisis. He was leaving office. He was followed by a crisis candidate, and he gets back in to avoid another crisis, because he may not make your life that much better, but he will help you avoid a complete calamity.
I do very much enjoy watching the political process in other countries because we have our stupid shit we do here. Like if you watch politicians try to relate to, they'll be like eating a hot dog with some veterans at the respecting country music festival. But if you go to other places, they like have that for Bolivia. So they're like, yeah, when you go outside, we have to rub confetti in your hair and you have to dance to pan flute. That's part of the process.
I want to see Cory Booker
It
doing
rocks.
that.
I loved it. I want those hats.
So
They all have those cool like mountain hats.
Oh yes, the top hats are so fucking cool.
Yeah, they're like
so many of
tall, but they're long. I love them.
yeah, they look like the Babadook or the Penguin or something.
Big shout out to hats.
To me, the biggest this kind of crystallized a distinction between liberalism and leftism and the way we approach taking power. In the liberal worldview, you have a candidate who has a message and has moments and is trying to relate to people, and there's an art to that. There's an art to messaging. There's an art to defining your opponent and all this stuff. The leftist view is just like, let's get a bunch of people. Let's knock on a bunch of doors and let's tell people why their life might be better. You know, it's just they're diametrically opposed. There's not the same, you know, and this was kind of like,
Well, it's an extremely like 2002 movie, right?
yeah.
So I only watched the doc. I didn't see the wonderful Sandra Bullock film. I did see the teaser, so I get the gist of what they're going for. But the entire thing is like there is no other option. Like the political consultants aren't thinking like we are doing one choice. They're like our markets are the only choice, and these people are too stupid
Exactly.
to realize that.
I think even the documentary on some level, like, it's a documentary, and so when you film a documentary, you have to kind of like not make it completely anti the people you're filming and like let them sort of look okay in it, or et cetera. But the name of their project, our brand is Crisis, is very similar to the shock doctrine that Naomi Klein talks about. And
Which is originally titled "Our Shock is Crisis."
but it's also funny because it sounds like that book, Our Band Could Be Your Life, but not
true.
about Black Flag and shit at all. It's about this, right?
It reminds me of that game Time Crisis. Continue.
But structurally, what Naomi Klein talks about in the shock doctrine of being, you know, this thing that we see come later on, or, well, I guess actually it's happening during some of the same years of the Iraq War and stuff, that's being put forth by, like, the Bush administration in, like, you know, coming into situations like in the Iraq War when everything is fucking in chaos, and then just, like, you know, laying down the groundwork for this, like, far right-wing free market capitalist thing to exist is, you know, that shit went back to CIA going into Chile and installing Pinochet. And it's also, you know, it's like pretty similar to what is happening here that these like people that worked for Democrats are doing in Bolivia. It's like, you know,
Right. If you look at like the fucking New York Times official update of the week or NPR's coverage of Bolivia right now, it's Evo Morales removed after disrespecting term limits, after fishy election results. There's nothing about like, you know, the coverage of the military's portion of it is Evo Morales blames the military.
yeah, and
Right.
they're how able to use like the chaos of the moment to sort of like just paper over that sort of shit. I don't know. I mean, we should go through this and then get to what's happening now, I think, after that, because like, there's other stuff there.
Goni was actually, when he was president in the 90s, he did quote unquote shock therapy. Actually, this is when he was a planning minister. Yeah, that was a big thing. They had hyperinflation, and so they like massively cut spending. Yeah, and then
It says somewhere on there that they privatized water
yeah,
at some point.
right, because he firmly believes in things that were unpopular in Bolivia. You know, and as they call it in the movies, people who are Bolivian, marketization or capitalization. They don't even call it marketization; just like full on C-word capitalization. That was another strange thing. Is that you have, because they're used to American politics, they come in and they do all these focus groups. So we have all these like poor Bolivian people who are like sent in a room and they're like asking them all these questions about like, well, what do you think of this jacket? What about this phrase? Is it authentic? Blah blah blah. And they're like, I don't have a house. Like,
when we say you'll have to pay for water, does that sound better than you'll get water for money?
Wrongly disagree, slightly disagree, and they're like, okay, like just not even in the same language.
If we paid for Cheech and Chong to come down here and rip a sweet bong using nationalized water, how would that test with you?
My dog is very sick.
But they do end up squeaking them in there. And, another difference between there and our elections is it's multi-party system. So this guy is elected with like 22% of the vote. So like the vast majority of Bolivians are not in favor of this government. And there's even, it's just so, we were talking earlier, one of the main characters who's part of the firm is just like so much like a Fred Armisen character. He's just like this smarmy, sort of elitist nerd who
he has like a fucking Portlandia vibe.
Very Portlandia vibe. And he's
missing like a wife character in this. That would really complete him.
Kind of do like Jim Halpert in The Office vibes at the camera a lot. I think the documentary was a better movie than this fucking fictionalization looks like it would be. I haven't watched the movie, but saw the trailer.
Yeah.
Looked like trash. Not even gonna watch.
Well,
Sandra Bullock do better.
But he has a line where he's talking about democracy and, how their project is to bring that to the entire world through, private goods. And he says, oh, yeah, we kind of overestimated Bolivians' capacity for democracy. We don't know if they're ready for it yet. It's different than in America because that's just kind of in the DNA there. Like he actually says that.
The Bolivian mind, it understands the pan flute. It can't appreciate voting and its many buttons. getting a ballot from an old woman and then filling out the circles you want. It's too complex.
Yeah.
Well, in the documentary, Our Brand, whatever, as Crisis, you have like a real camera talking to this fucking Fred Armisen ass motherfucker and watching him either play to the camera on some level or like just, rationalize to himself what is happening there. And I'm sure he's one actor within this systematic thing. So he probably on some level just thinks like, I'm a professional. I'm good at this. My job is to go help install democracy in this fucking place or whatever. But I mean, something that is interesting to me is a stark contrast between the documentary, which is what happened in real life, and the fictionalization of this is that, like we were saying, in the fictionalization, in order to create drama, to try to make this into a story that, Americans can eat popcorn and eat or whatever, they create this situation where there are two competing firms that are both helping ostensibly two different candidates, trying to, both of them for just for the interest of the candidate, for the interest of democracy, like get, their particular style of government off the ground. And I don't think that's a thing you ever actually see in real life in these, like, America's fucking backyard, Latin American installation situations. You see the state itself kind of putting all of its chips behind one fucking person. And in this situation, specifically in Bolivia, in this documentary, it was the gringo. It was the guy who like is fucking spent most of his time in America and was very,
or definitely capital is entirely lined up behind him.
Yeah. And he's very much opposite Evo, which is like a fucking dude that's like straight out of the cocoa farms and shit.
Yeah.
It's just so crazy to me that anyone would be taking... I'm sorry, I hear a crazy echo of me right after I finish talking. That anybody would see this documentary or even just be aware of the events and then try to put a positive spin on it in a movie. Because the timeline is there's the 2002-2003 election where they have a bunch of people running. Ghani wins by 22%, which is like 10,000 people or however many people it is, just like almost no one. He's just like technically a win because of these consultants. Then he's in charge for like a year. The entire country falls apart and like people are murdered in the streets until the complete government completely collapses. He's forced to leave the country. And then eventually like everything goes to shit, and then Evo Morales eventually takes power. And then your spin on that is like, what if it's a beautiful woman?
The funniest thing in the documentary, there is a woman that works for the firm, and she's like, in the end of the movie, she's just talking to the Fred Armisen guy, and she's just like, I've been so many places that are like war torn and just in shambles, and I've never like walked outside, like when I walk outside of this building and there's just no government. There's just nothing. Like she's just like describing.
I have never felt so unsafe.
Yeah, she's describing like walking outside and feeling like you were not in a society on planet Earth. Like you were in something before like rules and shit. And he's just kind of got that weird like detached Fred Armisen vibe, and he's just like, That's the part.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah,
I told him not to raise taxes. He did it.
it's such a funny moment because
he did it too. I wouldn't have done it on the people he did it on.
right. He's just kind of like, I don't know, and she's like, dude, like essentially doesn't say that, but like her vibe is just like, what the fuck did you do? You know?
Yeah. This is
She's
when
trying to like talk her way out of it. It's a very funny scene.
this is when the president has to raise taxes to pay for a pipeline, which he says will benefit the people of Bolivia in the long run. But in order to do that, he has to raise taxes on everybody. And he goes on TV, says it. People are very upset. And she says to the Fred Armisen, like, why did he raise taxes on poor people? Why didn't he just do it over like 15,000? And he's like, oh, he did? I thought he was doing that. Oops.
Oh, I told him not to.
Yeah.
Oh, he did that? Oh, why am I I mean, you're telling me, and I'm thinking, yeah, that was the most Portlandia fucking moment of the entire thing. But again, he was already president. And whenever they talk to the focus groups, they're like, he was already president. He invited in all these international businesses that took all of our money and gave jobs to foreigners. And then they're like, well, we looked it up and not that many of the foreigners have the jobs. And then did the same shit immediately.
Right. That's the thing they kept going back to was like, well, the statistics say unemployment has gone down, but people don't feel it. It's like instead of looking at the statistics, like, yeah, maybe there's something wrong with your stats. I don't know. But the interesting thing about the fictionalized version is there really is no analog to Evo Morales. It's a two-person race. It's portrayed as a two-person race between Goni and his, the person who, the guy who was a mayor. But Evo is not one of the candidates. The closest thing is in a scene where they're going through rural Bolivia. The campaign bus gets attacked by indigenous people. They just like throw rocks at it and they surround it. And the ringleader, I guess, looks like Evo. And so the candidate gets out of the bus and wants to try and talk to them. And they're like, we want to know your stance on the IMF. Are you going to like just let them take the reins, or like, what are you going to do about the IMF? And he says like, I promise I'll make it a referendum. I'll ask the people first before we move forward with IMF policy.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sandra Bullock is on this bus. I beg you.
Yeah.
Please leave us
Basically.
alone.
Yeah, it's just like a scene about the power of triangulation, just about the ability to just bullshit to people. And it feels authentic. And that's a big thing in the movie is like, get him to be authentic. Like one of their victories is, we got him to cry in this interview. We did it. But one of the ways that they end up winning against a candidate who, again, there's no difference really illuminated in the movie between their actual politics, him and the other guy he's running against. It's just like another, I guess, middle of the road politician in Bolivia. But the way that she wins is, one of the through lines is she had a romantic history with Billy Bob Thornton, who is kind of supposed to look like James Carville, but he doesn't act like him. And they approach each other before one of the debates, and she's reading Faust. And he asks her, anything good in there? And she says, oh yeah, there's this quote where he says, it's nice to win if sometimes you have to win a revolution with guns, but it's better to win with hearts. And he's like, oh, that's a good line. And then he says, this is the weirdest scene in the movie. He's like, after this is over, I'm going to masturbate to you so hard, basically. Yeah.
Wait, does he like really says that? That's not you editorializing?
It's not verbatim. It's phrased a little more artfully than I'm capable of with my suavacity.
Imagine how James Carville would say.
I'm going to masturbate to you. I'm going to go back to Louisiana.
I may not own a dog, but I'm about to beat a pooch, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, you would use a metaphor. Yes.
Southern, like Mark Twain shit.
That was weird. The goat fucking thing in the
documentary. You took all the spices in my cabinet.
Remember the goat fucking thing in the documentary? Where he's just like,
fucking?
I know you. People say he fucked a goat. He's just like giving an example about something, and he's like, well, if people are saying our candidate fucked a goat, we don't want to be the ones denying that a candidate fucked a goat. And like all these Bolivian people are just like, what are you talking about?
We paid him too much money. Just listen. Just
what
listen
are they
to
doing? Why do you?
It's like his whole head is eyebrows somehow. Just listen to what he's saying.
I honestly think it would have been the same campaign if they hadn't have hired. Like he would have done just as well to hire like a couple Bolivian staffers. Anyway,
I was just thinking about like what a kick-ass job it would be to be James Carville.
Imagine you're fucking Goni, right? And you're like not really. You're in Bolivia and you speak broken English, but you're trying to connect with the people. And then you've got James Carville coaching you and just like screaming in your ear, like, look, here's all you got to do, right? Just go out there and tell him that you didn't fuck. Like he's saying some metaphor, like, you know, if I fuck. The guy just goes out and he's like, I fucked a goat, you know?
You got to leave your pants on the ground, not the ground on your pants.
He's messing up all of Carville's metaphors and just talking fucking goats and picking his ass and shit. And people are cheering. His numbers go up and they're like, this guy's great, you know?
The system works.
So anyway, in the debate in the movie, James Carville's... Oh yeah, so he tells her he's going to masturbate to her, which is odd. And she responds by saying, that would be an honor. It's like what because he's supposed to be this like really revered political consultant, and like in the universe of this movie and in a lot of people's heads, political consultants are like geniuses. The ones who are good, like James Carville, they just have like a savant like quality and they're masters like
Well, you live in Washington, D.C. Aren't you around these people?
I'm around people who
Don't
think
they have
that.
a magnetism?
No.
That makes you want them to jack off?
This movie was ghostwritten by James Carville. That's the only situation in which someone would write a character that like kind of is James Carville, and all the women are so happy that he's sexually harassing them.
Yeah.
Just have all this side dialogue about like, you only lose your hair when your testosterone is above a certain level.
All this shit's just getting him off the hook for all his other shit.
Yeah.
People like Bill Clinton. You did a good job.
But in this debate, his candidate uses the quote from that we think is from Faust, and he says, sometimes you have to win with guns, better to win with hearts. And it turns out that it's a quote from Goebbels. And Sandra Bullock tricked him and gave him this good, juicy quote. And, you know, as some people may know, in Bolivia, there is a history of Nazis coming in and fucking things up. Klaus Barbie was, like, in the Bolivian military for a period of time.
Yeah, he had a group of assassins called the Grooms of Death.
Yeah.
Fucking messed up.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds funny, but I bet it's sad.
It's horrible.
So she manages to win her candidate the election, and there's just like in every Sandra Bullock movie, I've noticed this. There's a scene where she just goes hard. She just like fucking gets wasted and gets a bunch of other people who are like buttoned up to like come and party. They did that in Miss Congeniality. And that happens here, and she like fucks up a hotel room, and the fictional version of Goni like calls her into his office, and she's like, I have bipolar disorder, and it's like her kind of in a midlife crisis and also running this campaign. Um, and she manages to win, but immediately after the win, there's big riots. And the ending of the movie is her in a bus that's surrounded by these riots that are happening, and she's starting to like reflect, and she gets out of the bus and joins the riot. And then at the very end, she's being interviewed, and it says she's in the lower thirds that she's a member of the Latin American Solidarity Network. So she kind of, I don't know, it's hard to be like really mad at this movie because it seems she kind of comes around to, I guess, what we would want her to, but it's still just like a ridiculous film.
I think it's easy to be mad at the movie. The movie was bad and doesn't make any sense and definitely didn't need to be made.
Yeah. Well, the reason it got made is because George Clooney apparently was a producer, and I think he saw the documentary and was captivated by it because have you ever seen the Ides of March, either of you?
No.
It's not good, but it's a George Clooney movie that he wrote and directed. And it's basically him saying that he could be president because it's a political movie, and it's about like he wrote all the lines, directed it, and he plays the guy running for president. And it's just every other scene is him just absolutely nailing it on a tough question, and most of them are tough questions that other Democratic nominees for president have like floundered over. So like he's asked the Michael Dukakis, what would you do if your wife was raped and murdered question, and he just has this brilliant answer. And it's just like George Clooney showing that he should be the president of the United States. And so he has some.
And so this shows that George Clooney should also be the president of Bolivia.
Yeah.
And that's why we have what we have today.
Right. It's like, it's you take a documentary that has like a pretty decent message, and it's filtered through weird Hollywood NGO goggles, and this is kind of the lesson you take away from it, which is like, well, we fucked up, but
the problem was the country only had one team of American political consultants when what they needed was two teams of American political consultants.
Maybe even three. Yeah.
If they could get George Clooney himself down there, I mean, the situation would fix itself.
Yeah, but I think it is telling that they just didn't have an analog for the person who ended up being president of Bolivia, Evo Morales, because that just isn't plausible, him hiring an American consultant. I'm sure there are plenty of socialist burnouts who would love to give advice to any number of Latin American campaigns, but 2002, that's not really in the works.
Well, even in the documentary, Our Brand is Crisis, when they talk about the entire story of the documentary is framed around this race being between Goni and his other kind of center of the road counterpart, Manfred. And then when they have
Manfred
Man, when they have to explain why Evo comes out of nowhere and overtakes Manfred by a point and becomes the second place, they explain it as an aberration. Like the guy in the documentary is like, when you're doing these sort of campaigns, there's always a possibility that like 5 things can line up and one person can shoot up out of nowhere, right? And he explains that as to why suddenly Evo even became a factor in the race, and then after that, they vaguely allude to the populist sort of uprising against Goni while he's in office, and they're saying, and now Evo is like in the streets leading these people, like as if he's this one thing, and socialism is not like a populist force that like would have eventually produced an Evo anyway.
Yeah,
like it's not
mass movement. Yeah.
He's not a specific fact.
Like he agitated all these incredibly poor people.
Right.
So I think that, and then further mangled through the story of the Sandra Bullock movie, it kind of shows you a lot of like the shortcomings and failings to understand left populism that are the reasons, why all this shit is happening and why, we failed to see whatever not us, but the fucking U.S. failed to see like Evo's eventual uprising and then his presidency, and then eventually they fucking showed up with the CIA and guns and shit and took him out last week and sent him to Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, and that was,
if you know what I mean.
that was one of the most frustrating things about it was the Fred Armisen guy, when he's asked about Evo, was like, oh yeah, he's cheap. He's running on he's basically portraying him as like a gimmick.
Doing tricks.
Yeah, he's doing tricks. Yeah, he has these.
He's not playing fair.
By like wanting to nationalize industry, he's seen as a huckster. He's offering easy solutions. Because to them, it's like by virtue of a policy being unpopular, that makes it the more justified. The harder it is to get consensus to do a shitty thing, the more worthwhile it seems to neoliberals.
Not to draw like the most obvious comparison or whatever, but like this is the same group of people, the same weird ass professional class, lanyardy, dorky types of people that their job is to do this about Bernie Sanders in America,
right?
And to off what he's arguing as like, well, if it's so popular then it can't work or something weird like that, which is the same kind of mental gymnastics that they're going through with sort of trying to sweep this Evo factor out of even the framework of the story in this documentary, and then obviously in the fucking film movie where I'm assuming there's not really much of him.
No. Best part of the movie, and we should wrap up, but I feel like we can't miss out on this, is they clearly don't want Evo to be in the story. Like, they're trying not to frame it with him in it. Like, you can tell just by the way it came out. But there's one part where they have to, because Evo claims the U.S. State Department tried to kill him, and then the U.S. State Department makes a counter response on TV that not only did they not try to kill him, but that he hates America and may be working with Osama bin Laden.
I forgot that was like the crux of his supposed coming out of nowhere, is that this ambassador said all that shit, and then they were like, well, that'll surely make people hate him, and then all it did was make people fucking like him more.
Yeah.
And they were thrown off.
He's cool like Osama bin Laden.
It's obvious what actually happened there, which is that nobody fucking trusts the American government. So to watch that obvious factor come in and try to just like can go, hello fellow kids or hello fellow poor people, like, you don't want this guy, and then to say something as crazy as like, I heard he works with Osama bin Laden, it made people realize like this is a real threat to the fucking US and this guy might actually have some steam, and it just got people excited about him because like that's probably the craziest thing that happened to you all year if you live in that fucking place, man.
I mean, they were trying to lump in Chavez and like the Castro even with the axis of evil. They were trying to just make it like this network, this mythic thing.
It's
really hard to do that with Evo, and that's like the thing that's like frustrating about this week is, as far as people who came to power from the Pink Tide, like he's kind of the best one. These flaws. Obviously, there's problems, but like you compare him to Maduro or a lot of these other people, like he's done things pretty well, relatively speaking. And
well, people like Chavez, but he died.
Yeah.
So,
just to connect.
Damn, pour one out.
The story we're talking about here in this movie, in the early aughts, to how we got to fucking this guy being let out of his own place with a gun and shit by the military a couple days ago. What happened is, obviously after this, the events of fucking Goni getting like pushed out of his own presidency and shit. There's another guy, right? And then there's his vice president.
There were like two more, I think. Yeah, there was. Yeah, his vice president who got in trouble because he was supposed to get rid of these weapons that they didn't need anymore in Bolivia, and he gave them to the U.S. Just like for free, and the people were pretty upset about that.
Oh, geez.
Yeah,
they're very smart.
Embarrassing.
U.S. loves buying and selling guns. What are you doing? But anyway, eventually Evo, does get elected in like a fucking landslide. I think it's 50% of the voters. And then what he does is he immediately resolves this fucking thing that's been central to this whole conflict about the deal that they're cutting essentially with the U.S. over their natural gas. And what he does is he flips it around. It was under Goni like a situation where the Bolivian state kept 18% of the profit, and then the rest of it went to the investors, right? And what he did is he flipped it around to where the 18% went to the investors, the rest of it went to the Bolivian state, which caused like pretty good growth, even though this is still like one of the second poorest countries in Latin America. But it caused a state of like, you know, pretty like positive growth, and people were pretty happy with it for a while. And then what happened is he's a popular leader. I'm to understand what this is kind of what is going on with what happened last week. But there was this question of like term limits. Like technically he wasn't supposed to be able to run again, but like, you know, as we discussed, like in fucking Bolivia and in other Latin American countries, people go away for like 10 years, come back, they win again. It's not the same as our system, right? And there are governments all over the world where, you know, term limits have been just like abolished in this situation. I know narratively it's you can make this sound like a dictatorship, mad with power thing, but he was a popular leader, and the way they were able to sort of sell the idea that this was like a strong man sort of installing his own, you know, or himself back into power and seizing an election unfairly was what happened is, so there's like there's two like there's like an exit poll type thing, like when they have the elections in Bolivia, there's the actual results that are, you know, iron and steel and written in, you know, permanent ink or whatever, but then there's a quicker like exit poll type thing that they air on the news, right? And as they were airing the results in the not official at all exit poll, he was losing. He wasn't winning like by a lot. He wasn't doing very well. And then as they were actually wrapping up the actual results, this sort of fluctuation happened where they went, okay, fuck the exit poll, we're going to come back with the real results. When they came back with the real results, suddenly he had jumped ahead like 20 points or something. But that's because the way the elections work there is that they go from the you know, urban areas outward.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last votes to get counted are in urban areas, and that's like where all of his fucking base is.
Rural areas, right?
You know, ass like, you know, socialist guy, right? So they're able to frame that to like, you know, the American reader as like, look at this guy, you know, he wanted to abolish term limits and he shouldn't have been running, and then B, it looks like he fudged the numbers, right? But in reality, it was just the real results came in, and they you know, there was a blip between the exit poll.
In reality, what was fudged was the will of the people.
Yeah. That's what I would say that they did. They fudged them, right?
Yeah.
So this ends with you know, this sort of like right-wing fucking, you know, populist uprising in the streets against him. What we can probably assume is the CIA coming in and agitating the military. But either way, no matter how you slice it, the fucking president was like, you know, ordered away at gunpoint. That's a coup, like no matter what.
I love learning about other cultures, but sometimes fucked up shit happens, and it's like, fuck.
It'd be like that.
It really do be like that.
So pour one out for the people of Bolivia. They're going through a tough one right now. And be sure to check out this movie, the documentary, and definitely not the Sandra Bullock one, which actually it will be a waste of your fucking time.
You know what I think happened? Okay.
Nuestra marca es las crisis. That's the last one.
Just one last thought on this. I think it became sort of a romantic-esque movie because Carville is famous for having a wife who is a Republican. So they wanted to kind of play that out, but in Bolivia, and combine it with this, you know, documentary that Clooney saw when he was high.
Right, and how would we dramatize that? I know. What if he says he's gonna fucking go home and pound off to Sandra Bullock?
Yeah. Now I might not be pushing a hoop down a street, but I'm gonna Adam. I don't know. Some weird old timey shit.
You know, they say the rent's too damn high, but what about when the high is too damn rent?
Nice.
You go to the circus, see an elephant balancing on a ball. I go home to my wife. I see the Republican Party balancing on my marriage. Well, I think this has been done great service to our James Carville impressions, respectively.
Yeah.
And that's worth something.
Yeah.
All right, mates.
Yeah, go down there, eat that spicy boudin. It's a little like a, it looks like a little sewer rabbit. It's actually big. It lives in the bayou. Anyway, I'm gonna go jack off. I don't know.
I'm gonna go jack off. Any plugs or anything?
Yeah, let's do plugs and get out of here.
I got a plug. If you are in the nation's...
Go jack off.
If you are in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., which is the capital for now, we'll see what happens. Come out on the 19th of November, Tuesday at 8:30 to full luxury space comedy. Fully automated luxury space comedy. What is the name of my show? Fully automated luxury comedy. Thank you, Anders.
It's a fully automated luxury gay space communism.
Yes.
That term.
Well, yes.
Like, come out to gay space comedy, my show.
Fully... Carville trying
fully
to push
Andersley comedy.
Yeah, you can see me telling jokes and a bunch of other funny people. We got Denise Taylor, Andrew Cook, Kevin Titz, and Christine O'Day with my buddy Francisco Benavidez. It's going to be at Spacey Cloud Lounge in Adams Morgan, 2309 18th Street Northwest, and that's again Tuesday the 19th at 8:30.
Love me some Kevin Tit. You know what? We have a show next Wednesday on the 20th. We are doing the next round of Democratic debates, so come see us live at the Secret Loft at around 8 p.m. Whenever the dark hour ascends, we will be there, and we will be live broadcasting these debates. And follow me on Twitter at PatakJokes, you dumb fools. That's it for me.
Cool. I just got bummed out remembering we have to do that again. God, the debates are getting so long, repetitive. I'll work on my Carville for it. Maybe that'll be a fun thing to do.
Yeah, bring your Carville.
Cajun accent is hard, man, because there's like 30 different things going on. But I'll work on it.
Bring your Carville to it,
folks. I'll be coming back
after the show.
After our live debate in December, I'm coming back to the Southwest. I'll be in Phoenix and Bisbee. If you're out in the fucking desert, but then after that, more importantly, I'm doing.
Do they have Megabus in Australia?
Yeah. Okay. More importantly, I won a golden Megabus ticket when I went to Philadelphia to open for Pepitone and Haversack. And what that means is I'm just can ride the Megabus for free for a year. So I'm coming everywhere on the right half of the country. Essentially, Megabus is like right down the Bible. Like they carved up just the right. You can't really fuck with like Mormon country or Northern California. But I was just up there, so fuck that.
Fuck it.
But all of next year, I'm going on hella tour because I can. I've saved upwards of $500 in Megabus tickets. So I'll see you soon if you're in the Midwest or Florida or Texas or Atlanta, Georgia, the Deep South, Boston, etc. Come on, all these fucking places. Hit me up if you put shows on. We'll just make it happen. I got a free bus there.
Anywhere with a Megabus. We'll be there.
Yeah. The good seats in the front and shit. Dude, I'm gonna fucking ball out. That's it. I think, tour dates, all that shit. Twitter, website.
Folks, that's been another week of Pod Damn America. Give it up for yourselves.
There's no
Give it up for everybody you've seen tonight.
You lost your mind too. Dude, when I watched the Joker movie with my mom, like my hands started when they were in the club, I started clapping almost. I was like, oh fuck, that's not just broke my brain with years of stand up.
You're like when a soldier hears a firework.
Yeah. Spooked like a dog.
But for applause.
Then I salute. It's finished in Spanish.
Finish.
Finisho.